Well, one of the more interesting games of the weekend was Nottingham Forest's visit to the Emirates against Arsenal and Postecoglou's first game as Nottingham Forest manager, with Arsenal winning 3-0 in what has become pretty customary at this point from Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. Comfortable, no real stress, no real threat in the game, I thought, from Forest. I thought Arsenal had a great deal of control. Two goals from a set piece as well, so par for the course. And Gyökeres getting the third, well, the second, but combined with the third. And there's a couple interesting things I'm going to go over throughout this video, but I'm going to preface everything I'm about to say by saying Ange Postecoglou would have only had 1, 2, 3 days to prepare for this game. So, what I'm about to discuss and how critical I may sound needs to be taken with a pinch of salt because there wouldn't have been a lot he could do in the few days he had available to him. Whatever we're seeing here will not be the ultimate vision. And Arsenal, I thought, approached this game very, very well. They showed a real array of qualities that they have in their disposal, starting with the man on the ball here, Mascara, who I thought was excellent in starting these attacks for Arsenal. I thought his distribution from that central centre-back position was excellent. And Nottingham Forest gave Arsenal a lot of opportunity to play through the middle, which is the exact type of area you don't want the opposition to play through. And if we just use this as an example here, Morgan Gibbs-White, who would typically be sitting on Zubamendi in this position, is jumping from Zubamendi to go and press Mosquera here. You've got Hudson-Odoi, who is tucking in to sort of protect that channel inside to Martin Odegaard, who's now going to press Yuri Timber, who's dropping into the defensive line to offer an easy option for Mosquera to play out to the wide area. It allows Arsenal to build up with the back three, and he's going to press. You've got Chris Wood going over here to Gabriel, and that lane is pretty much cut off. But what happens is, with Hudson-Odoi moving away from Odegaard, this pass is available now for Mosquera to slip in between markers. And does he do it? Of course he does. Technically, with his passing, he was excellent. Odegaard drops in. He's engaged by Elliot Anderson, but Odegaard coming into this position with Zubamendi on the other side of Gibbs-White now means that Odegaard has a real clean and free pass to play it to Zubamendi in this position here. And now all of a sudden, you've got this Gibbs-White, Anderson, and Sangari. And the reason Sangari's over in that sort of right channel is he's tasked with following Mikel Moreno. And as I'll show you in a second, Calafiori's movement meant there was space and left back, and Mikel Moreno could drop into that position to fill that space. It drags Sangari out of position. That means there's a lot of space in the midfield for Forest. And as you can see here, Forest were, I think, too quick to press with the midfielders, and they just volunteered a lot of space up once Arsenal played through, which they did because they had a midfield and central overload and plenty of movement that could capitalise on any open space in the middle of the park. So that little wall pass to Zubamendi opened that passing lane up. Calafiori, as I've just mentioned, who would come in from his left back position here, tracked by Dan Ndoye in this position, who would come from his right wing position to track this movement. Calafiori's movement was a little bit unpredictable, so it meant that Ndoye had to be really focused and really sharp to make sure he wasn't lose track. Sangari has to panic and come over from Mikel Moreno in this position because he sees there's a free man. But with Odegaard now moving in behind the central markers who have been forced too high, Anderson and Gibbs-White too high, Sangari's caught over to the far side. Odegaard can now make this movement here. He receives that quick pass in behind that midfield line with the front three ahead of him. The only issue is Odegaard's passing, as it kind of is in sort of dangerous attacking situations, wasn't the best and gave the ball away a little bit cheaply. But that just highlights the threat that Arsenal have, and it goes up a level, as I'm going to show you here, especially once Ethan Nwaneri came on the pitch. And this is really going to show the disorganisation from a Nottingham Forest point of view. And again, this could just be down to the fact that they've had a manager in the door for about 3 days. Sangari in this position here. Now, initially, you'd say it's a pretty sensible position. He's in a front two sort of pressing shape with Chris Wood here, Elliot Anderson, and the midfielder behind them dropping in. I think that's Gibbs-White recovering into that position. Nothing wrong with that. It looks like a standard 4-4-2. There's Moreno in behind, but it's narrow enough that there's no real penetrative passing option. But Sangari makes a really, really random decision. Just look at his movement. Look what he's about to do. Mascara's on the ball. And then pay attention to this guy, Ethan Nwaneri. So if I just move it on, Sangari has moved back into his sort of more traditional position, as you can see here. And remember before when I was discussing his marking role, he was following Moreno, who could push himself out into that left-back position. For some reason, he felt like he needed to get back into position as opposed to making sure Nwaneri couldn't get a clean pass. Mascara shows his composure to hold onto the ball long enough to make sure that he found the timing right for that pass into Wanyeri to receive it in the ultimate amount of space. And now all of a sudden, you've got this. You've got Wanyeri, who's the attacking midfielder, who's receiving it as the pivot almost. Moreno, who's the left-sided midfielder, now in the right-sided midfielder position. Calafiori, who's the left back, who's in the attacking midfield position. And there you get Zubamendi, who is the pivot, connecting into a sort of diamond slash box, all outnumbering that Nottingham Forest midfield three, who just couldn't contain with that central overload. Pulled too far, stretched wide, created too many gaps, and as a result, the movement from that Arsenal central four just capitalised on the space available to them, and they linked up excellently in these situations. It was a little bit slow, a little bit sluggish, felt like they needed to move the ball a little bit quicker, but having that versatility available to him was excellent. As you can see here, if Wanyeri turns on the ball, he's got a free pass into Calafiori, who's in between the lines, and he has the chance to drive the ball up the field and again get it to that attack in three. So brilliant from Arsenal, a real level of discombobulation from that Forest midfield three, but Arsenal gained control in that central area fantastically. And the main target when they breached that midfield area for Forest was to get it to Madueke at right wing. And as you can see here, he's faced one-on-one with, at the time it was Morato, who struggled against him. He's a centre-back playing left-back and really didn't deal well with the situations. And Madueke being left-footed on the right, you think would want to make this movement inside. But as you can see here, Timber's making an underlapping run while being tracked by Hudson-Odoi, who's making sure that he doesn't receive a free pass in that area that's vast between Morato and Murillo at left centre-back. So Hudson-Odoi did his job well enough. At best, you maybe create that run for Madueke to go inside, but Madueke showed a real great level of quality in this game too. Attack down the line, get to the byline, and hit crosses to the far post. And with Morato not being amazing defending the sort of wide areas as a fullback, gets pulled in too tight. Madueke suckers him into it, takes one touch away from him, can't move inside because Hudson-Odoi shored up that space between left centre back and left back. So he attacks where the space is, in behind him, and he's going to get down to the byline on his right foot, and he whipped in a number of crosses, some of which were of poor quality, some of which were decent but couldn't find the runs, but he was a constant threat throughout by going down on the outside and going inside, and that's a hard place for a fullback to be, not knowing whether he should show you inside or outside, and Madueke had the confidence to go both ways, and Morato really struggled with him, couldn't contain him, couldn't show him either way, and it was these type of situations that ended up in Zubamendi getting the first goal of the game, which, if you've seen it, beauty of a goal, but that repetitive movement, Madueke, if he can't get the ball into the box, then at least it can create a corner kick or a set piece situation out of it, and we know how good Arsenal are at those. But I'm going to move on to the second half here, and I'm going to be very critical of one man now, and that man is Savona in this right back position. So as you can see here, Calafiori is on the ball in the deeper base of that midfield overload that Forest couldn't deal with. They've dropped into a more reserved shape. And the line from Nottingham Forest Barcelona, as you can see here, pretty level. In that line, just the last line before the halfway line, organised, compact. Savona being so much deeper, about 5-6 yards deeper, keeping Eze in a great deal of space. He's not even really getting close to him in this position, meaning that he can play him onside now. He's constantly behind him. I get he wants to maybe keep him in his eye line, but that pass is available now over the top. And so, as you can see here now, by the time that pass is played, as Calafiori's got time to bring it up the pitch, Savona's panicking. Savona's a couple yards deeper than Eze, and Eze can see that, and he's now making that movement in behind. He's on his blind spot, and Savona doesn't quite know where he is. And just look at how disconnected he is from that defensive line. That to there, and then look at how disorganised that is. Savona not communicating well with his defenders, too worried about the transition of Eze, yet that's an easy offside trap to play off, but doesn't read it well enough. Panics and then has to retreat because he feels like the threat of Eze in behind is going to cause him trouble, and then makes the most mental decision, reading the long ball worse than I've ever seen a fullback do it. As the ball's going over the top of him, you see now Eze's in behind him, turns sideways and reads it as if he's about to head the ball away. Now, it's hard to illustrate it because I can't show you video. That ball was never in a position from where he is to be able to head it away. As a result, gets caught massively under it, and now look where Eze is. From where he was, a good 3, 4 yards in front of him, is now about 5 or 6 yards behind him, with a clear opportunity to play it across the 6 yard box, and he can put it into an area now where Gyökeres is attacking that ball and has an easy tap in. And this is the type of bread and butter goal that Gyökeres was signed for, to put these away and offer that killer instinct for Arsenal. But Savona just misreading everything, not organising himself for the defensive line. Horrific job of reading the long ball, and this wasn't a player I rated particularly highly from his time at Juventus, and stuff like this just do not convince me that I was wrong in that opinion. But fantastic from Eze, offered transitional threat in abundance, and Gyökeres doing what he was signed to do. And one thing I'm going to point out as a criticism for Nottingham Forest, in their set pieces, you think of the two goals, the Zubamendi first one and the Zubamendi second one, look at the space they're leaving on the edge of the box there. What is known as zone 14. All that space for players to occupy themselves in. You've got Declan Rice and Leandro Trossard, and it's an easy path from Ethan Wanyeri to play it to the pair of them on the edge of the box. And as you can see here, if I just change the thing, there's the eventual goal scorer Zubamendi, and I can't see because it's obscured, blocking runs out into the edge of the box. Forest aren't close enough to the edge of the box, and their runs are being blocked. Well played from Arsenal, intelligent, gets played to Declan Rice, who is now in acres of space. Forest then panic and try and get out to him, but then that leaves Leandro Trossard free. Declan Rice sees that passing opportunity and plays it to him. Trossard now on the edge of the box, and as you can see, the panic in Nottingham Forest, they're disorganised, they're a bit all over the place, and you have eventual goal scorer Zubamendi in between players, got a lot of space at the far post. Trossard finds him, and it's the killer goal for Arsenal and curtains for Nottingham Forest. But this just exemplifies what I've said throughout this video. Disorganisation completely from Nottingham Forest, and from set piece situations, from marking situations, that's going to make it easy for Arsenal to capitalise on, because the one thing you can accuse Arsenal of always being under Mikel Arteta is organised. But fantastic from them. And I'll show you a little bit of the on the ball shape from Nottingham Forest just to maybe illustrate what Andrew's going for. And this isn't a great sample size because they weren't on the ball a lot. But the one interesting thing I thought coming into this game from Forest on the ball shape under Ange Postecoglou was what the fullbacks would be doing. If you remember at Spurs, inverted runs, Udogie and Pedro Porro getting in between winger and the 8 on that side. Porro a little bit deeper to use as crossing and passing from deep. Udogie to make half-space runs to the byline to support Maddison and Son. It was a little early demonstration of maybe what to expect from Ange Postecoglou at Nottingham Forest. There's Sangare and Anderson. Anderson is the pivot, Sangare dropping into the defensive line, which early tells you that the fullbacks are very pushed on. And if I move it on to the next slide, Milenkovic with the space plays it to Chris Wood, and with him dropping to receive the ball, look at the runners either side of him. So you have Dan and Doy in a very central position, looking to make the run in between centre back and full back. You've got Hudson and Doy looking to do it on the other side, and out wide in this position here is Savona, the fullback, occupying the width. On the far side, you have Nico Williams supplying the width over there. So it already just shows that he's willing to adapt and change things from his time at Spurs. I'm sure we'll see more games where we can get a better view of what his real intentions are with this Nottingham Forest team. But wing is staying narrow up against Chris Wood, maybe to link up in this situation. As you can see here, the pass in this move did go down this channel into the run of Dan and Doy. He managed to use his pace to get him behind. Gabriel recovered excellently though, so it didn't amount to anything. But those runs in between centre back and full back will kill certain teams, because that's a run that nobody wants to try and track. So a little bit of an interesting thing. We fun to see how this develops against teams where it's maybe going to be a bit more evenly matched. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.